Welcome everyone to SEO Office Hours. My name is Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals. And part of what we do, along with special guests, are these office hour sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We've had a bunch of questions submitted already, as you can see, which we'll go through. But if there's anybody here live on the call who would like to ask any questions, feel free to flag yourself in the chat functionality, which will be monitored. Also, there's usually a bunch of other amazing SEOs live on the call that share their ideas, experiences, and perspectives. Personally, I think that's one of the best things about SEO Office Hours, not just hearing from the four of us, but from everybody else as well. So please continue to do that. Like every week, with me today is Juliana, Turnbull, also known as SEO Joe Blogs. Good morning.
Hello, Mike, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on our 67th episode. Yes, we took a couple of weeks out, Brighton SEO, and then Easter. So I wanted to say hello and welcome to Simon, Preeti, Umama, Jordan, John, Louise, Favor, Dan, Valerie, Neil, Veronica, Valid, Francisca, Ikra, Boran, and Trupti. And actually, we have everyone dialing in from UK, Spain, Germany, Nigeria, Pakistan, and Switzerland. So if I've missed any other countries, please let me know. We have 6 countries so far. Oh, Bulgaria. Okay, 7 countries. A truly international SEO office hours. So today is our 67th episode, as I mentioned, and I'm Juliana Turnbull. I run events in my free time, Search London and Search Barcelona. And if anyone's here, May 26th, you're hearing this first, we are going to have our next in-person event in Barcelona in the evening. All details to be confirmed and organized from next week. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm really pleased to have back on the show. We have Robb and Emina. Hello. Thank you for coming.
Good morning.
Robb, thank you for joining us today. You came in as an extra special guest a couple of weeks ago. You are a digital entrepreneur. You are also the managing director of Experience Gifts and Experiences Days Limited. You also have a strong track record of growing businesses in domestic and international markets. Very impressive, Robb. Maybe you can share some tips on the call. But you also have experience with websites, branding, SEO, as well as PR. And you've even trekked off-road from London to Brighton. I think you've done 300K walks, so 3 of the 100K walks. And you've also been a regular of John Mueller's live SEO Webmaster Hangouts. You've been a keen supporter of SEO Office Hours, so thank you very much. Really happy to have you on the show. Thank you, Robb. I'm going to share your bio here in the chat, your LinkedIn bio, or you can connect with Robb here. Yeah, impressive with your 2 companies and all that you've done so far.
It does sound impressive. You're right.
So modest, Robb.
Yeah, it's very impressive. I'm like, oh my God.
British people also
Yeah.
very modest. And thank you very much, Emina, for joining us back on the show today. You were on before.
Thank you for having me. I'm a bit starstruck with the lineup here, so hopefully I can hold my own.
You certainly can. And you are the head of digital marketing at Vixen Digital. They are a PPC, SEO, and email marketing social media agency in Brighton. And you lead the team there. And you also collaborate closely with clients that are from small businesses to large enterprise organizations. You also co-host a show, SEO's Getting Coffee with Sean Carroll. And we were on the show, so thank you for the invite. And you've also been featured on many other podcasts like Search with Candor, Moz. You've also spoken at Women in Tech SEO. You spoke at Brighton SEO just a couple of weeks ago. And you also are at Vixen Digital, where they organize events. I don't know if you could tell us a bit more about that. They organize events. Is every couple of months?
Yeah, and we try to do it every quarter. And actually, we have one of our speakers, Jordan, here, who is doing the May one. So anybody who's in Brighton absolutely needs to come and hear Jordan. He is brilliant.
Oh, great. Can you share a link to the event?
Yeah, we'll do.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Emina and Robb, for joining us on the show. And thank you also to our audience who are not joining us live. So this is at 9:30 a.m. British summertime. So it is a bit late for places like Australia, and it may be a bit early for South America or California. But thank you for joining us. And as you are enjoying the show so much, you can click a like on the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel for good signals. For everyone that's live, feel free to ask your questions in the chat. Like always, we try and answer as many as possible. We will also be answering the questions that people have submitted in the week. So without further ado, I am going to pass over back to Mike.
Amazing. Thank you. And thanks everybody for joining. Emina, you gave an amazing talk at Brighton SEO. That was so good. I really enjoyed that. So congrats. And we usually get a lot of questions around AI and AI overviews and things like that. Joe, yesterday you hosted a webinar with Aleda and Mike King and so on, which I watched, which was really good, where you answer people's questions. Somebody's, what's going on? Other webinars, you're not allowed to do that. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, that was awesome. For those of you that have lots of questions around AI overviews, check out the SEMrush webinars, the latest ones, because they're really good.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah, it was great.
Yes.
Yeah, we had Aleda, Cindy Crum, Mike King, and Nick Eubanks, and it was the first webinar that I was organizing working at SEMrush. And thank you to some of you who joined the webinar. It was great to have you there. And yes, you can watch the recording. I will share it in the chat, actually, if you would like to. You have to register with SEMrush, and then you have to register with the platform, which is called Bright Talk. But thanks also for everyone's support.
Amazing. Okay, so this question is a couple of weeks old because it was after our last session where Rob actually jumped in and joined us because one of our speakers, we weren't sure if they were going to turn up. So Rob kept jumping in for us, which was brilliant. And so we're continuing on from that because we were actually talking about brand collaborations. I think that was the question. And Rob was talking about working with brands like Guinness World Records and stuff like that. And somebody had a follow-up question, which is in today's session, you were talking about those big link building campaigns like breaking world records. Loved it. How on earth do you come up with one of those big ideas in the first place? And how do you know or even begin to guess that it's going to work? So I thought we'd start where we finished off, if that's all right. Rob, are you okay starting with this one? Great.
So first thing that people need to realize with Guinness is that they're a commercial enterprise. So you can't just do a record, let them know, and they'll publish it for you. There's a couple of ways to do it. You either apply, create an account, you can search their database for a record and look to see if you can break it. That is usually depending on how big the stunt, it might take 2 or 3 months for them to even read the thing and then decide whether or not you can do it. And that still costs you, I'm talking about 5 or 6 years ago, it was at least £500 or £600 just to apply, and there's no guarantee they'll even accept it as a possible record. The other way to do it is to work with them. So they'll provide, it's a bit like trying to do a trade show, but do it on the cheap and you can't. So if you've ever done a trade show, then they charge you for carpet, electric, internet, everything else. If you do a stunt with Guinness, they'll charge you for adjudicators, for measurers, for everything alongside it. And that's, you're talking, even when we did our last one 5 or 6 years ago, we did it in conjunction with them, so it's free because we used to work with them. But you're talking £6,000 to £7,000 upwards to even start thinking about it. What I would do if you're talking about coming up with the idea is think about your business and the people that would be interested in what you do. We were lucky because we did everything from cooking lessons to skydiving, bungee jumping. There's no end of records that have PR ability. But if you sell T-shirts, socks, etc., it's really challenging. You can search their database for largest, longest, oldest, all of the superlatives that you might want to find and break. One piece of advice I would give is don't attempt a mass participation record, as they call it, which is the most people, like most people cooking, most people dancing. Firstly, the records will be so off the scale because country level PR people attempt these, but it's really difficult. It's really challenging if you've never done one. One of the best ones we did, we failed at. So this is good for PR. So we were a gift company, so we did the most people gift wrapping simultaneously. And we did it for charity. So there's already an angle where you can get a lot of people involved and interested in it. It was covered live on the BBC. We had a local radio station come and compare it. We did it with a university on their grounds, so there's some more good links for you. And we got Mattel to provide the toys and donated them to Bernardo's. So you've already got 5 or 6 very influential people involved in that. We failed at that, but it didn't make a difference because we'd already had the PR at that point. So think about something, if you want to do these things, think about something where it doesn't matter if you win or lose, you're still going to get the PR out of it. That's what I would do.
Amazing. Emina, do you have anything to add?
When I was at Women in Technical SEO, I went to a really good workshop around generating creative ideas. And I think the process that you use to generate these ideas is just as important. You know your company, but then you think about what is the best approach when you're sitting down. And I know everybody hates this word brainstorming, and I hate it as well. If you're just sitting there, it doesn't have any direction or anything. But have a look at some of the advice on Women in Technical SEO. I'm terrible with names, but I can dig out who did the session. I think it was Hannah. Hannah did the session. It was really good. And she talked about how to get from these big brainstorming sessions to just a few ideas that actually hold water, like the value of going wide first, but then going specific. And I echo what Rob was saying. It's not going to, like, these massive ones with a lot of investment isn't going to be for everybody. But maybe I have rose-colored glasses. I think in every business, there is a really interesting, engaging idea on a smaller scale that you can do. We're working with a client now and planning a campaign. This is the other thing. You jump on trends or mimic something that somebody else did, but applied to your industry as well. So I think that's part of it as well. So yeah, we're doing a small one, but I think it's going to be a good one. So yeah, that's my advice.
Amazing. Joe, do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add, just second to what Emina said about the workshop. It was Hannah. She's a digital PR. She knows everything about digital PR and coming up with great ideas. So that was a great workshop that she did. And I would say there's some people that are not good at coming up with great ideas. I find it difficult myself, and I find the best way to do it is sometimes just to not think about it, step away from work, and actually some ideas come to me over the weekend. It's not a bad thing if that is not your forte. You can't be good at anything, everything. But I would say if you want to do that type of brainstorm, I quite like the idea. I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but where you take a piece of paper and you're all sitting in a room, everyone writes down an idea, and then you fold over the piece of paper, and then you pass around people in the room. And then that way you can actually, at the end, have 10 different ideas, and then you can read it out. And also it's anonymous. So you don't have to be worried about, oh, my idea is not that great. And then you can obviously build on it too. So that's another idea if you want to actually be creative, but don't worry if we're not great at everything. So I really like what Rob and Emina said.
Great. Yeah, I think so. My background, although I work for myself now, beforehand I was in-house for about 11 years, and we used to do a lot of digital PR campaigns, the kind of stuff that Rob was talking about. And it wasn't a huge company, so every time we did something, it had to work. And so I had to be fairly confident on the idea in the first place, and then just throw everything into it to make sure it did work. But what I would say in terms of finding those ideas, I think you really have to start with knowing the publications that you want to try and get into and the sort of stuff that they cover, and really understanding that the products or services that you're offering and the customers as well, and try and marry those things up where for a start, every kind of big thing that we did, I always made sure it made sense that particular brand did that, because sometimes you do get brands doing some really cool things, but it's just totally random and it doesn't make sense. It's great, it got some publication, it got some coverage and publications and stuff, but I always try to do it. For instance, for some of my clients now, I'm always thinking about, if we're going to do a big idea, time wise, I try and do it during their busiest period, because I like them to get featured whilst people are booking or buying what they're selling. Some people would do it just before, just so you know that that coverage or links or whatever is helping the site. But I tend to think it's quite nice if when people are looking for what they do, they have to see them in newspapers and hear about them on the radio and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd say number one is really understanding the target market and sort of the types of publications they read and where you want to get that coverage from. And I think rather than try and do it in one session, I think you just got to do a lot of research into what other companies are doing in other countries that are similar or other industries that are similar to your industry, and try and build up a bit of I use Milanote just to put a load of ideas there, but rather than just sitting in a room with a team and trying to come up with something on the fly, I tend to go off and just do a lot of research, and it might take me a week and a half, 2 weeks to just in general thinking, and then we'll come up with something. And then the next thing, where I haven't had big budgets before, I've tried to get other people involved and try to think, we talked about this last time about collaborating with other brands, but thinking about what's in it for them and trying to find those brands that could help you get awareness for the campaign, but also might give you some money towards it because it helps if they're in it or if they can be involved. Guinness World Records have never given me any money. It's sort of like Rob was saying, you've always got to pay them. But some other brands might, for instance, if you're attempting a world record, I've mentioned this before, but we built the Guinness World Records world's largest bra, and it was based on a Debenhams bra. It was paid for by Vanish, and it was for Wear It Pink Day. So like Rob was saying, there were lots of interested parties there that could also help share that story and make it grow. One of my When I was working for this company, they do things like corporate events and stuff like that. And we worked with Endemol, who at the time were running the Big Brother house. And basically, when it wasn't being used for filming, we could use it for corporate events. And so that naturally is a great story, because getting locked in the Big Brother house for 24 hours with your boss is not something that most people want. But it's a good story. And that didn't cost us a penny, because it was basically, we then booked the event space. It got Big Brother and Endemol money for when it wasn't being used. And it also was a great story. So I think there are ways of doing these bigger campaigns without a budget. The one thing I would like to just very quickly pick up on, sorry, I realize I'm taking lots of time, but what Rob was saying about, even though they didn't manage to achieve the record, they basically still got coverage out of it. One of the things that I like to do with a story is chop it up. And I think if you can basically, for instance, if you're doing a record, you go out with the fact that you're going to be attempting one, you go out then again with you're doing it, and then you go out again with here's the results, and it gives you almost 3 opportunities to tell a different version of the same story. And if they haven't covered it the first time round, even if you did fail, with things like world records, they tend to be quite funny things anyway, like really random. So even if you didn't make it, it's still a good story. Rob, did you want to say anything else on it?
No, just don't ever underestimate the time involved. Just because we used to work with Guinness, so weirdly, one year they did pay me. January is when we sat down for Guinness World Record Day in November. Every January. Just think about me trying to get hold of Mattel and all of these. You're talking about departments where it needs to get sign off at 6 different levels. Don't think you can sit down in August, September and do something for Christmas.
No.
It's never going to happen. So just really start a year in advance if you can. And there's no exaggeration if you're doing something bigger.
And also just on that, also just for inspiration, looking at things like days of the year that are coming up and things like that can inspire campaigns. Or like I said, it's really about knowing your industry and trying to see if you can make a story work. Sorry, I know I'm taking up way too much time on this, but I love this stuff. The very last thing is, one of the parts of the question was, how do you make sure it will work, or even begin to guess? One of the things that I like to do is a pre-mortem, where before you go out with it, you imagine it's failed, and everybody who's involved tries to come up with all the reasons it might fail, and then you do whatever you can to try and prevent those things from happening. And I actually find those sessions usually help you come up with even more ideas to enhance the campaign and to make sure it works. And also, don't give up when you're doing outreach and stuff like that. I think there's many times we've been doing outreach and we thought we've got nothing and I'm about to give up, and then all of a sudden a ton of coverage comes in. So yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good campaign that you did. World's largest bra. I remember the first time you did it.
I've rolled out that bra many times. We sold on eBay as well afterward the following year. Yeah, definitely. If you get a good story, you get the most out of it.
Yeah.
Just to quickly add to that, and that's really interesting. One of the things that I've seen people like, and I saw John's comment here, longest time spent to getting a link, which is hilarious. But I think there is something in that. Like when you're doing a PR campaign like that, if your primary KPI is getting that link, you're doing it wrong, in my opinion, because that's not the whole point of a PR campaign. So I think connected to what you were saying, maybe in the pre-mortem, you think about very clearly what are your KPIs, what are you going to be looking at, which needle needs to be moved. And it's not actually the number of clicks, let's face it, because that's not the point ultimately. So yeah, just to jump in on the whole longest time spent on a link, if that's how you're doing it, I wouldn't advise it.
But also just on that, I think whenever you're doing a campaign like this, it's always really important to think about why would somebody even mention your brand as a part of this story, particularly when there are multiple brands involved. Now, I come from a lot of campaigns from an SEO perspective, not purely a PR. So I'll always make sure that, for instance, signing up to something or finding out more information or applying for something is always on the website for the brand that I'm promoting. And I think don't just rely on hoping that people will cover you. Just make sure you give a reason for them to do something. And the other thing is with these big campaigns, I joked before about reusing that bra, but basically you spend so much time coming up with these campaigns, whether it's something like that or whether it's a big research report. And I think it's really important to think about different ways to cut it up and use it, but also to repurpose it the following year. So if it's a report, if it was good and people were interested, then roll it out again and again with an updated version of the stats and that stuff. Don't put all that work in for just one hit. Joe, do we have anything in the chat?
Well, yes, I thought you never asked. We do.
Okay.
We have some comments. I do very much like John's one about the longest time spent getting a link. As you mentioned, Mike, then therefore you can repurpose that content several times over if it's a good one. We also have just a couple of other comments. Simon says, not all big ideas are good ideas, but that's never stopped people obviously doing them. For example, if anyone remembers years ago, Boris, who was stuck over the Thames before he became prime minister and changed many things for many people. It got a lot of coverage when he was stuck over the Thames in this harness. It was quite funny, actually. We had to laugh about it. And also, Simon recommends to keep a drive calendar, or a calendar basically with dates of industry events and non-industry events, because then you can tie it in with the different campaigns you're doing. Louise also said she liked your pre-mortem idea. Very good idea to do that. Albert's talking about PR campaigners and brand link builders are now earning, basically PR campaigners and brand link builders. Perhaps that might be a good industry to get into. They seem to be doing quite well financially, he was saying. Waleed talked about doing a SWOT analysis and a pestle analysis, and is commenting back on repurposing the content. You can actually distribute and repurpose. It's normally sometimes where good ideas die, but great report, but not planned that well enough. Sorry, it's hard for me to read and explain at the same time. Did you mean that it was good to repurpose?
Yeah, no, that's what I meant, what Michael was saying. Like you put all of this effort and money into doing this amazing piece of work, and then you haven't planned the distribution and repurposing from the get-go. So it like fizzles out very quickly, and you don't get your value that's in there. I've seen it so many times, it's terrible.
So I had a lot of comments from this one, and we've just answered one question so far, Mike. I think we need to go on another one, but in the meantime, while you get the other question ready, I will just share that webinar that I was doing last night. So if anyone wants to find out more about overviews and watch the recording, please go there.
Amazing. Okay, so I think this will be a fairly quick question to answer. So we'll jump onto this one, which is it considered a manipulation if you're adding keywords into text of links from one page of your site to another to help that second page rank? So they want to know, is that considered manipulative?
Oh, there you go.
Get in there. No.
Your page to your page, what are you manipulating? Think about what links and authorities coming in from the original page.
It's not. It needs to be part of the journey. You're not gonna if you're adding a link that makes no sense and you're just like then you're not actually serving the user at all. You're not going to get anything out of it. But yeah, short of it, no.
I totally agree. I think as long as it makes sense, if you've got a page about something and you're linking it to with that anchor text, then that just helps people, search engines, everything understand what that page is about. The question is, no, it's not. Sorry, the answer. Next question. So this person, basically their homepage has dropped for their big money terms. They've looked into it and they think it correlates with the last few core updates. And so what they're basically thinking is creating a specific page or specific pages for those terms that the homepage used to rank for. And what they're wondering is if they do that, it means it's not going to have, in their words, any domain authority yet because they're fresh pages. Obviously, they're thinking that they would link from the homepage to these pages. But the question is, do we think that would be enough for those pages to rank?
So I have a bit of a follow-up question. From my understanding, domain authority or authority score or whatever you call it, it's a proprietary metric. So the metrics is like a bit fluffy anyway. But from my understanding, it applies to the whole site. It's not just on page level. It's like a site authority metric that we've seen from, like, for example, Candor's Mark did that Google exploit, and that had a site authority as well. Now, my question is, I've worked with several companies in this position recently, and it's, if you look at search engine land, there's a couple of pieces that I did case studies of people who have lost significant ranking off the back of the latest updates. That's not the strategy that I would go through. You've discovered that your homepage, which is your biggest authority page, is losing traffic. Do you know why that has happened? Before you go into, oh, let's just create another page for it, what is the actual reason? For example, have you lost it because, you know, you've been penalized after an update, or have you lost it because penalized in rankings? Not, hopefully they looked at their Google Search Console to see if there's any manual penalties on there, but find out why. You know, is it an update thing, or has things changed in the market as well? Maybe there's less searches for it. Maybe there's an AI overview that's now sitting above you. Maybe there's a new competitor that has come in. Are we talking about what SEO Stacks founder, oh, I'm terrible with names. Daniels is calling, is it slippage or is it devaluation of the page? So I wouldn't just go and, oh, we've tanked for these keywords, let's just create a specific page for it. It's just not going to work.
Rob, do you have any thoughts?
Lots. First of all, if it was your homepage, was there no thought put into that in the first place? Why was it ranking for that? Why would you create a new page, and what have you done to that homepage in the last however long that's your page that's got all of the authority and search rankings? But I think, I don't want to be the bad cop, will be the Simon Cowell on the panel, but I usually am. Most people seem to think that a core update or any update penalizes them rather than putting them where they should have been in the first place.
Good point.
And everyone assumes that it's a correction in the wrong way, but maybe now people rank where they should do. Google spend a lot of time, a lot of money, have more data than anyone else to get the results. And sometimes you just have to look back and say, did I deserve to rank where I was before this update? So that's a bit harsh, but sometimes that's what you have to do. And just you, other people that you trust, get them to look at the search results and say, is my page better than theirs? And there's no SEO or no kind of tricks involved. Just look at it and say, do I deserve to rank for this term?
Rob, thank you. Simon Cowell, we'll have to get you a bit one of those. No, it's so true. Joe, do you have anything to add?
No, I think we've summed it up quite well. Thank everyone for your input. I should have a couple of comments in the chat, though, unless you have anything else to mention first, Mike.
I was just going to say I would look at what else is ranking for those terms now and see if it's different to what you had on your homepage. So I always think of pages really when somebody's searching for your brand. that's the page they first go to, possibly your about. I know a lot of companies have done really well over the years with also managing to get homepages to rank for other things because it's such a key page. But yeah, I would basically just look at what else is ranking. And the question I would be asking is, does it make sense to create a new page? Did the homepage satisfy what people were searching for before? Was it solving their problems? Or actually, like Rob was saying, you're just a bit lucky, really, that you were appearing in the top results of those terms. But yeah, I would just focus on if it doesn't satisfy those terms. To me, it makes sense that you might create something that answers those questions and so on better. But I think that's like a natural part of SEO, that you just evolve your site and always try and make it better and answer people's problems.
I'd also add, and I think Jordan's saying something similar in the chat, that money terms is also a changing kind of environment with AI overviews. If not every term deserves to be monetized, and Google have been saying this for years, if your entire site just publishes time zones, currency exchanges, or cinema times, whatever it is that Google can grab and just present quicker to the user, maybe it's not a term that you should be able to sell on.
Absolutely. Joe, is there anything else in the chat?
Yeah, just a couple of points. So John mentioned that new pages that are on the same domain, so the domain authority would actually remain the same. Preeti was saying that I hardly see homepage ranks for a lot of things these days, like what you said, Mike. Yeah, back to Jordan's point, actually, he was saying maybe it could be linked to the introduction of some AI overviews. So AI overviews only feature homepage content. 0.45% in their citations, while 82.5% of Google AI overviews citations come from the deeper level pages. So he shared a link to where he got that from on Twitter. Albert was also saying that he lost almost 15% of SEO traffic to the homepage as well. And Simon saying that homepage should really rank for branded terms if done right. And we don't have the exact details, but it would be interesting to know when they said that they've dropped for all the big money terms. We don't have the context for that. It sounds quite dramatic.
Yeah.
So it's a bit difficult to say, okay, what was that? And yeah, what was the converting terms for that? So yeah.
I was just going to add, there are also some benefits. If they do manage to create other pages, for example, that rank for other terms and their homepage just focuses on brand, it makes it a lot easier to work out which pages convert. Because obviously, if you're mixing your kind of key terms with your branded terms, you never really know in analytics. It's hard to work out conversion. It's hard to break up because search console doesn't give you conversions and stuff like that. So it makes it a lot easier from a data point of view as well.
Oh, I just wanted to say, just before we go, just because we've only got 15 minutes left, so I wanted to say for everyone that's joined us, thank you for joining us live. We have 26 participants live today. And also for those that are watching the recording, click a like on the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And for those watching us live, feel free to do that too. I know things get very busy on a Friday, and thank you for your support for 67 episodes. Back to you, Mike.
Okay, great. Next question. I've read that Google is planning to redirect all country level domains to google.com, and they've shared an article. From a business perspective, I'd like to understand the implications of this. Does this suggest that domains such as .co.uk are likely to be devalued in terms of SEO performance or trust signals? And if so, would it be a smart move to start moving your international domains, those regional ones, to .com? Rob, shaking your
No.
head.
I feel like John already answered this in the
yeah,
week when that came out. So it's been on every forum, LinkedIn, everywhere you look. John's already answered it.
So that's
the answer is no.
Everyone's saying that don't start making massive, complex SEO decisions based on that. Okay, fine. Next question. Okay, so how do you strike the right balance between copy that converts and copy that ranks?
That's a really interesting one, actually.
Emina, go for it.
It's one of my pet peeves. I have a lot of opinions on this. Now, when I was back in-house, there was a piece of content that I used to look after very well because it was one of those pieces that brings a lot of traffic and a lot of conversions. So it was very much kind of high intent. Now, this piece, by the time I got there, it was a mammoth. it was such a long piece that we constantly updated and constantly looked after, because any slippage in the rankings had a very direct conversion impact. However, when you do stuff like that, what you're doing is you're also, after a while, you're like impacting your conversion rates, because as it grows, the article becomes bigger and it becomes more difficult to put in conversion points. And also, nobody's going to read that. So there's ways around it. So how we approached it is implementing, for example, accordions and things on ones that can be crawled on certain points in the article to make it like more details, rather than you were having this massive piece. It was like a comparison between tools, actually. And we did a lot of research to understand, used Hotjar to understand at what point are people actually converting, and put some custom tracking as well to find out what's the best conversion points that they're using, and tested that a little bit and stuff, just to make it a little bit more palpable for users, which is great for conversions, but not necessarily. One of the things that I've noticed, and I know I'm hoping that will change, is that in-depth articles work really well. However, they are a complete eyesore sometimes for users, because we scroll, we don't really read the whole thing. So I don't know if that makes sense, but you have to balance it out and understand what users are doing on your website. That's the first thing. Make sure that you understand what people are doing on your website, for your audience, enough to be able to balance, because in fact, it should be the same thing. It's just about the users. It's not about the traffic conversions. It's all comes from the behavior of your user on your website.
Amazing, Rob.
Yeah, it's how do you strike the right balance? You measure. It's interesting what Emina said there. We had a couple of pieces of content that we used to rank really well for, but then you reach a kind of tipping point where it stops being useful in ranking and starts just to become its own little project, like Emina said. We did a couple of pieces of content. One was for afternoon teas in Brighton, because this is the sort of stuff we sell, and driving a Ferrari. So both in the experience world. With the afternoon teas in Brighton, we essentially sent people out to try every single one. And every time there was another one, or a new hotel opened, or we'd do it again. And we did see that it eventually tapered off, where each time we added a new one, there's a new point of interest on the map, it's a new route we had to publish. It wasn't for users anymore. We were essentially doing it for Google. And each large scale piece of content or a long article is really probably, like Emina said, you're not publishing it so someone can read the whole thing. There'll be something in it you want to rank for. And eventually you might want to just take that piece out and create its own piece. So for driving a Ferrari, we sat down, a bit like the big idea conversation we just had. We sat down and said, how many ways can you drive a Ferrari? What's the intent behind this search? How many different routes to market are there? So you can drive on a track, you can buy one, you could steal one, you could become an F1 driver, you could become a parking attendant, and you could do lots of different things. But literally any way you can think of, when someone's Googling drive a Ferrari, what might they mean? And so you build this big piece, but then eventually what you find is actually the people who are looking for it are looking for this specific aspect of it. So maybe spin that out and create its own model. So when it stops being useful, find the thing you really want to rank for and start again, I think.
Amazing. Joe, do you have anything to add?
I think those are great answers. I just wanted to share the comments actually that we have. Simon actually said, focus on the conversations. This is quite topical to you, Rob. Everyone likes to look at the supercars at these car shows, but very few people buy them. So sell your supercar at a yacht show, because they are cheaper than yachts. Wish I had that problem. Yeah. Jordan's talking about right for humans, and the right ones will come to you, to your site, and convert. You mentioned that it's crazy to also just take care of one piece of content rather than risking. So we could always do the whole repurposing there as well. Waleed said, provide valuable information that answers questions and solves problems. And I said, don't steal. That's not what we suggest here, just in case this, of course, blows up like the Brighton SEO's fake authors thing that happens.
Yeah, especially don't steal Ferraris. No stealing Ferraris.
Yeah, exactly, Rob. Rob, you have to be careful. Things might be taken literally.
If you film it and get links out of it, then I'm not saying do it. What I'm
I'm gonna
saying is
post it
everything's an
now on
opportunity for
LinkedIn.
PR.
I've recorded that section of you saying it, and I'm gonna post it on LinkedIn and say how you're telling everybody to steal Ferraris.
Just make sure you quote me and link to me.
Just balancing, I think it is quite difficult sometimes because obviously you want to try and make sure you fully satisfy the term or terms, as well as, or questions or problems, as well as sell to the person if it's a sales page or an important landing page. Something, putting my kind of CRO hat on, something that I tend to do when creating wireframes or anything like that is if it's a new client, I'll go through tons of their reviews and I'll work out what people like, what they don't like, all of that stuff. And we'll build out pages based on that and not necessarily what the client says. And actually, I usually find that stuff converts, that really helps with conversions because it's ticking off people's actual problems or what they like about the products and so on. So that's usually my starting point. And then from an SEO, putting my SEO hat on, something that I really like to do is just look at web pages that rank really well for really tough terms and almost do a bit of what Emina was talking about there, where you're looking at layouts and how people are presenting content. And there are so many options. It doesn't need to be an essay of text to basically answer those kind of search queries. There are more interesting ways. And I think I do it all the time where I just look and see what people are doing. And I think mixing those two together, that works at the moment quite well, I think, for me.
Yeah, can I just add something to that in a very specific field? So if you watch other trends, so the trend I saw in recipes in food, the articles got longer and longer and longer and longer until you literally couldn't find the recipe anymore on these pages. And therefore people would have to put shortcut to recipe at the top of their long form article when all you're doing is trying to look for a flapjack recipe. And so you see a shift in what people have had to do. And that's probably the time to rethink how to build these pages.
Yeah. I think just adding to that as well, I think years ago, it used to be to always create like the ultimate guide to every kind of search term. And I think that's become so easy to do with things like ChatGPT and so on. Actually, it's now about answering more specific queries, and it's also about having that real point of difference as opposed to just copying what everybody else is doing and repackaging it as the ultimate version. Yeah, I definitely think you have to review what you're doing and how you're doing it. Okay, so we're at 10:23. Usually I would jump onto another question, but I do know, like Rob, for example, I know your answer to what you're most excited about in terms of SEO is interesting. So if everyone's okay with that, are you happy if I jump onto that, or would you like to answer another question?
I reckon I could cover it in about a minute, so we could probably get another quick.
Let's try and fit another one in then. Okay. And I've also set the stage now, so everybody's like, what's Rob going to say? Just to put the pressure on. Okay, let's go with this one. This should be a fairly quick one. Hello, Good Signals team. I wanted to ask you about website security. What security measures do you follow when building websites? I think, anybody like to kick off on this one?
I can admit it's not my area of expertise. I'm going to say it depends, which is quite late in the call. But if you're just a blog and information site, it's probably your needs are minimal and are probably covered by whatever CMS platform or host you're on. If you're in banking, you probably don't need to be on a forum asking that question.
Yeah, it's the basics of SSL certificate, looking at that. It really depends on the industry. I've seen quite a lot of companies who do get a cyber attack. One of our clients had a big one recently, but that was because they were still running a list server to do their email marketing. So it really depends on what your stack is, what kind of security you want to put on your website, what the stack is and what the industry is, I would say.
I think if you're using something like WordPress or any kind of plugins or Shopify with applications or anything like that, I would just make sure you keep all of those up to date. I'd have pretty solid passwords, things like that, change them on a regular basis. And I think I have been hacked before, and just knowing how to roll back, for example, with your server to before that happened and just change things. But if that does happen, I would also just get somebody to help you and check it out. I think everyone's covered everything else. Joe, did you have anything to add?
Oh, just about the hacking one. Yeah, I was hacked as well. Sometimes your SSL certificate expires before your hosting one does. So just make sure that you have that and it's using the card that is not expired. And also just in terms of other security things, as Mike said, having a backup. And Jordan said about using password generators and two-factor authentication when possible. Back to obviously, what is your site? Just, I would say the basics is SSL. If you can afford a bit more, like actual, not a shared hosting platform, then that's even better too.
Yeah, just don't be afraid of spending a bit of money when you start the site. Not when you need it. It's a bit like doing contract law. You don't need a lawyer when you're arguing over the contract. You need a lawyer when you're drafting the contract.
Good point.
Amazing advice. Yeah, I think the thing with office hours, obviously we get a real mix of people on here and we get some real kind of technical SEOs and we obviously get some people who are just starting out, and that's totally fine. So if you have questions like that, hopefully we can help. The last question is our regular question, which is, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment? And I'll start with Rob. Rob, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment?
I'm glad you asked. I'm most excited about Google Things to Do, which is a relatively new thing in the Google travel space. We've just become a connectivity partner. So I don't even know if it qualifies as SEO, but it's in the marketing space. And I think is a great opportunity for smaller companies, smaller activity companies, which you all know very well, to start to compete with some large OTAs and larger systems. I don't really have time to go into detail on it, but if anyone wants any advice or any SEO companies that work with any activities, I'd be happy to help. And for us, it's been a bit of a game changer because of AI. So AI is taking a lot of the terms we used to rank for, and the maps, archery in Sussex or driver supercar in Yorkshire or tours in London, all of that stuff now, what we used to rank for, we can't anymore. So this Google Things to Do has been a bit of a game changer for us. And if anyone needs any help with it, I'd be happy to.
Amazing. So Google Things to Do. Emina, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment?
Oh, it has to be generative engine optimization. It's not GEO, because to be fair, I'm not like one of those people who thinks that there's much different to be done. I think it's plain old marketing and SEO. So not particularly excited about that, but I'm excited about some of the Google Ads stuff that's been out, which I know this is SEO, but there's a few things in the pipeline from Google on the Google Ads side of things that I know my team and me are excited about, like PMax, for example. There's been rumors that we'll finally have a channel report, which would be brilliant. On the SEO side, the time of the full stack marketer is finally nigh. So I'm really excited about the fact that it's no longer about some of these murky tactics. You really need to be thinking about your audience, your brand, how are you serving your customers. It's all really important now, because obviously traffic can no longer be your main KPI like it used to be with all of the changes that we're seeing. So I'm quite optimistic in terms of where it's going. So I'm excited about it. Still, I might eat my hat later.
Amazing. Joe, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment?
Oh, it's excited about events. Search Africon next week. If you are going, I think there might be some people on the show that are going to the event, Search Africon, on May the 3rd. May the 2nd is an online event. There are some workshops. Check it out. There are still some tickets. You can also buy tickets so that you can watch it recorded as well afterwards. And you can also continue to support Search Africon. This is run by Abere Jonathan, and you can buy tickets for other people. So I'd recommend that event next Saturday, May the 3rd.
Amazing. And I am most excited about next week. I will be sitting in the audience and not hosting. So Jordan, who is on the call right now, will be hosting next week. So I'm going to be chatting away. So I'm excited about that, to actually enjoy office hours from a different perspective. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us live. Thank you to those that have watched afterwards on YouTube. Thank you so much, Rob and Emina. You guys are amazing. Joe, thank you so much for co-hosting. And thank you to those who submitted questions. We will see you next week. I hope everybody has an amazing weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thank you to Rob and Emina for being our special guests this week.
Thank you.
Thank you all. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.